Yes, let's talk about it indeed. Welcome back to another episode of Elaborates. I'm your host, Jake Lloyd. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me as we learn, we grow, we do it together. I'm really excited about this episode because it's quite frankly long overdue. My guest this week is a dear friend of mine. He's an incredibly talented actor, improviser, a voiceover artist, a magician, a writer, director, producer. The dude just hustles. You can also see him right now in the brand new, critically acclaimed feature film, certified 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, The Endless, in limited theaters right now. Guys, it's Shane Brady on the couch. Hey, Shane.
What's up, brother?
How's it going? Thanks for popping by. Thanks for sitting on the couch with me.
It's my absolute pleasure.
This might be the earliest that we've ever recorded an Elaborate. It is a bright and early Saturday morning. I've got a lot of coffee. So I feel like this specific episode is going to have an arc where it's like real low energy. Yeah. And then the coffee's going to kick in about 15-20. And then we're just going to be like, I'm going to be talking too fast for anybody to be understanding.
It'll be a mosh pit in here.
Yeah. So Shane, you and I go back how many years now? Any idea? Do you have any idea when we met?
I think for certain we met here in Los Angeles, I want to say. And I think it was at Moorhead's house. Remember when he had his house where he would always throw his parties?
It is the house that acts as my character's house in the film Pinch, which you are in, and an executive producer of it as well.
Yeah. Quick story about that. I'm still literally mad because the weekend that it came out at the NoHo Cinefest, right?
Right.
Guys, the theater that it plays at is literally a 6-minute walk from my house.
Yeah.
And so on that Friday, my girlfriend and I all get dressed up. We hang out with Jake and his girlfriend, a couple of other members of the cast. We, get food. It's great fun. Awesome. See you on Sunday. Excited to finally see the movie. And I got Thai food from just one of the shitty walk around the area places. And I 100% legitimately got food poisoning. And I think it's maybe the second time in my life I've gotten food poisoning.
Yeah, you texted 10 minutes before our premiere, and you were like, I'm hoping I can get this out. But
it's like,
you didn't get it out.
No, but without spelling it out, just coming out of both ends, and you're like, why? Why?
Right.
What the hell did I do? But then my roommate got food from that Thai place just a few weeks afterwards.
Same thing.
And he was like, oh man, my gut is destroyed.
So if you're living in LA, don't go to...
We should warn everybody, but I don't know the name of it because I legit think it's just Thai food.
Just that's
you know
the
what
name
I
on
mean?
the sign. It just says Thai food.
We have the best Thai food.
Sure.
Thai food.
Well, I mean, the good news is that despite it being the premiere, it probably will not be our last screening here in the area.
Yeah.
In fact, we will very likely be having a very special night dedicated solely to us at the Frida Theater in Santa Ana.
Yeah.
Which is a theater that you can see The Endless in within just a couple days of this release.
Yeah.
But in any case, we'll get into all that plug and bullshit at the end.
Yeah.
So we definitely met at one of the Aaron Moorhead house parties.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where it happens a lot out here with our friends group where I don't really know. I couldn't tell you our first conversation. I couldn't tell you when we but it was just all of a sudden we're just friends.
Yeah.
It's oh, that's that guy and we're friends.
Yeah. I do think there's a truism to people out here in LA bond over people who get shit done.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I can't remember our exact first conversation, but I for certain know that we probably bonded over the thing of hey, instead of sitting around and waiting for things,
right,
I would rather stew in my own depression while simultaneously writing or directing or something. And I do think that people who aren't in this world, there is kind of a misconception of oh, well, this dude wants to write and direct and star and produce. But
they see it as a sort of a vanity.
Yeah.
Or oh, who does this guy think he is?
Exactly. But what you don't understand is people out here, just speaking generalities, are the flakiest of flaky that you could possibly expect.
It's
and
true.
So it just all comes out of necessity. You're I would love for someone else to hold the camera and for
Right.
someone else to help me write this thing and maybe help find a location or
Yeah,
whatever. But
and you hit the nail on the head. People always ask like, "Oh, so you're a director?
Yeah.
You're a writer. You're a producer?" And I'm like, I was at one point I was just an actor,
yeah,
but nobody would put me in anything.
Yeah.
And so I realized I had to put myself in something.
Yep.
And you do just sort of fall into it out of a necessity to work.
Yeah.
And to be putting stuff out there into the world and be creating.
Yep.
But yeah, I definitely, so I've, game recognized game. Campfire, he's the pod dog is just has no personal space whatsoever. Some guests get humped the entire episode, so if he's chewing on your hand, then that's the least of the problems.
Well, it's funny because he hated me the first 3 minutes I was here.
Right, but so you are from since the aforementioned Aaron Moorhead, who is the co-director of the Endless. We're going to talk about that a lot today. You are from that Florida group, as I call it.
Yeah, 100%. Which I guess would be like myself, Aaron Moorhead, Julian Higgins, Vince Talenti,
former guest of the show, Tybee
Diskin, for sure. We went to Florida State together. Her older brother, Cameron Diskin, obviously.
Jake Brown, who's a feature guest of the show and one of the leads in Pinch as well. But you guys all went to college at FSU?
Yes.
FSU.
Yeah.
I at one time said like
UF
UCF
or whatever.
UF,
you get hated.
I got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah.
And you went there and you studied acting?
Yeah, I actually, so I wanted, and this is probably a blessing in disguise, but I wanted to be a professional hockey player. And when I was 14, I got my neck broken playing hockey. So I missed,
You broke your neck?
I broke
I've
my
never
neck.
known that.
Really?
You broke your neck?
I broke my neck. I was, the game was, we were losing like 7-2 or 8-2 or 9-2. We were getting killed. And I was playing in an 18 and under league. And because when I was 15, I was 5'10", 160. I was huge.
Oh.
Like right now sitting here, I'm almost
The same
31
size,
and I'm like 5'11", 170.
Right.
So I actually was hurting the other kids. So they were like, we got to bump you up. You're too big. So I was in this bigger league and we were playing a travel game in Jacksonville. And I scored the 2 goals for my team. I wasn't even supposed to play, but there were so many fights the previous game. I cracked into the lineup. And
are you sure that you're not just describing like a law script for Slapshot 3
I know,
or some shit like that?
And so I was on a breakaway. The buzzer sounds, and anyone who plays any sort of sports, you kind of know there's this weird thing that happens that when the buzzer sounds, everyone kind of like looks down.
Right.
No one really pays attention to what's going on anymore. So I, stopped skating as fast, but the guy who was behind me, who I had checked into his own team's bench, was still pissed at me. So he took his stick and knocked out my left skate. So I started falling backwards. And then he threw me head first into the boards. So my skull hit the boards before anything.
Oh my God.
And then my neck hit the ice again. And so the type of injury I sustained is consistent with not wearing your seatbelt in a car accident where your head hits the windshield and then the back seat.
Right.
I think it's called square, but I had a compression fracture on my C4, C5, C6, C7.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So think of it like crushing an Oreo. So it's not like snapping a bone in half, but you crush an Oreo. You have all
crumbles.
these it's like crumbles. So yeah, I was in intensive care for like a week in Jacksonville, and then I was in a neck brace.
What happened to that kid? Did you guys like seek legal action? Is it not doable because of the league? Like what? That's bananas.
Yeah. Basically, I never found out who the other kid was. He never sent me an apology letter or anything. Not even like the coach from the other team, nothing. Nobody ever sent me anything. And I remember we tried to sue, but they couldn't discern if it happened during the game or after the game. And there's supposed to be cameras on everything, but there weren't cameras. And it's also like in Jacksonville, and even though it's still within the state of Florida, like we are in Palm Harbor.
Crazy.
Like, yeah. So anyways, long story short, I had a high school sweetheart named Shannon, and we dated almost the entirety of high school. And I was going to go to UCF, and she said, I'm going to FSU. So, young love, you're like, okay, I'll go to FSU. And I decided that last minute to go to Florida State.
Were you outside of wanting to play hockey? So you're a Florida native as well, I should say. Were you like, oh, I want to go to school in Florida? Was there an active thing of like, oh, I'm going to stay here?
I think it was just out of necessity because of money.
Gotcha.
Where
in Florida did you grow up? Sorry to interrupt.
Palm Harbor. That's like a half hour southwest of Tampa.
Right. That's not too far from where I stayed when I lived there.
Oh, yeah.
And did you grow up in a real like sort of rural area, or was it a little bit more urban? Because I feel like there's lots of patches out there.
Yeah, it's all patches. I guess like one could argue I had a pretty normal, like lower middle class home
Yeah.
and family
Suburbia?
and stuff. Yeah. Like I could get on my bike and like ride it to the beach within 12 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Growing up on Long Island, we every now and then we would just ride to the docks, go to the ocean. And it was like I could count on like one hand how many times like each summer we did
Actually
it
did it.
versus talked about doing it.
That's, you know what, that's probably going back. That's probably another reason why we bonded, because I was born in Long Island and my family is all from Long Island. And
See, these details I forget about you.
I know.
You were born on Long Island, but you moved to Tampa when?
when I was 4,
And where were you born on Long Island?
Sayville.
Oh, not that far at all.
Yeah.
And did the family move collectively? What was the catalyst for the move to Florida for them?
My dad cheated on my mom for like the 3rd or 4th time or something. So like my mom took me and my sister down to Florida, and then my dad came running after, and then they were like, okay, we'll be good. And
Was it like a we're leaving and not telling him kind of thing?
So
Like you know what I'm saying? Like did she
Yeah,
like take
no,
the
I
kids
know.
and leave without his knowledge?
I don't know that answer, but I will say this. I'm going to turn 31 on April 26th, and I still am learning stuff about my childhood that I had no idea.
Isn't that fascinating?
So like a year ago, we're driving around my hometown and my mom's like looking at garage sale stuff, and she points to a house and she's like, "Oh, that was our first house." And I go, "What the hell do you mean that was our first house? We've always lived at the Fernshire house." She's like, "Oh no, I never told you. Yeah, when I took you and Erin, my older sister, down to Florida, we lived in that house for like almost a year. And then when your father came down and we decided to try to fix our marriage again, that's when we moved to the French." And I'm like, what
like-
the holy hell?
It's-
I had no clue.
It really is incredible to me, I think, what parents take for granted as far as like, oh, they know about this because they're in our family.
Yeah.
That happened to me in a huge and very heavy way when not that long ago, my mother found like a box of photos that were just like, oh, here's a box of photos. I mean, I think we talked about this once a little bit off air. My mother's a hoarder.
Mhm.
And, when something gets discovered nowadays, it's like it never existed, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. She found these photos and we're looking through photos, and my entire life up until I was 30, I think I just celebrated my 30th birthday when this happened, or maybe 31, maybe I'm the same age
Mhm.
you were now. My entire life up to that point, I was always told that my father, he came to the hospital, but I don't think he was like there. You know what I mean? Like he was in the hospital. That was as far as it went, is what I was told. And then didn't see him until I was 9. I found a photo of my father holding me as a baby.
Yeah, we did talk about
And
this.
it blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
And it's not like all of a sudden the guy gets, a Father of the World award.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where you're just like I never knew that this happened. And it seems like such a minor, no big deal detail that you guys maybe didn't live in this house.
And I bet your mom was like, "Oh yeah, I never told you that you're doing it."
And it's exactly, it's one of those things where they just take it for granted of like, oh, well, he probably knows these things.
Yeah.
So your mom probably never thought to tell you, well, yeah, we lived in this house for a year because why would she?
Because what does it matter at this
and,
point?
and of course you didn't ask. Why would you? It's not like you're going to be prompted to go, hey, did we live in a different house ever?
Yeah.
But that would come out of nowhere.
exactly.
Yeah. So you're at 4 years old, you said it was?
Yeah.
You moved down with your sister. How much older is your sister than you?
4 years older than me, so she was 8.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how much sooner did dad come running?
I guess like a year or so.
Okay.
It's all, it's also odd. It's also one of those things where, and maybe it was the same for you, you hear about these things and it's kind of like somebody handing you 200 pounds. So like you just kind of have to hold on to it, and you're like,
Right.
what do I do with all this weight right now? I guess I'm not going to like comb through the scruples and like, be a detective about all this information. Like,
Yeah,
you just kind of go, oh, I guess there was a house, and then about a year later we moved. Like,
yeah, no, that is a beautiful way to put it, because
Yeah.
you're exactly right. When stuff like that sort of gets thrown at you, especially like as an adult, like we have enough shit of our own right now
Yeah.
that we're getting every day. We're getting new shit every day of like, oh, hey, here's this fucking bill that's overdue, or here's
Yep.
this job opportunity that you didn't get, or here's
Yeah.
this, whatever the day-to-day dramas are for you and I. Like, and then to be handed something that you should have been carrying this whole time.
Yeah.
And going like, where do I put this shit?
Yeah.
I don't have any more room. I don't have room in my head
Yeah.
for dad holding me as a baby photo.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't have room for that shit right now.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it? You're absolutely right. So when dad did come down, what was your relationship like with him as a kid? Were you, did the problems that he and your mother have sort of trickle down to you and his relationships, or your sister's relationship?
Yeah. So it's rough. It's rough for two reasons. Truth be told, when I broke my neck when I was 14, I suffered from vertigo really bad. And if you've never had vertigo, it's the drunkest you've ever been, the dizziest you've ever been, and then somebody comes and just punches you in the skull.
Oh, jeez.
So you're like, you are constantly feeling like you're on the verge of vomiting.
Right.
You're just dizzy all the time. Like literally going from like when I would wake up with my broken neck and vertigo, if I was laying down, if I would think about, okay, I have to like get to a 45-degree angle with some pillows behind me,
Right.
it was enough to make me want to vomit.
Oh,
So
jeez.
because of that, I lost a lot of my memories, as odd as that is.
Holy shit.
Like not amnesia, but the only way I know how to describe it is like, I know for certain that my dad and I used to play hockey together all the time. I know for certain we would go in the driveway and either he would be goalie or I would be goalie, or we would work on shots or something. But I don't have any like movie footage in my brain.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
even have like a pictorial thing I could go to. I remember us like playing roller hockey. I have those, but I know that was a massive slab of my childhood.
Right.
Was that, but I don't have it.
And sadly, that's probably where your passion for hockey
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you don't even know, you can't even look at those seeds.
Yeah. I do think that my dad, when the family was together, I do think that he was a really good dad. I just think he was a really shitty husband.
Yeah, that. A lot of people have said that about my father as well. Where
Yeah.
it's like, he wasn't a bad guy. He was just a fucking stupid guy who did shitty things.
Yeah.
But he was always like, life of the party, that kind of dude. And
Yeah.
and I was always told that as well about my older sister, who he was around for years and years and years. Like he raised her up until she was 8, 9. Until that's when she took off. He took off on sort of both of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he wasn't. So you don't think that there was ever, you and him ever necessarily had a problem when you were a child, anyways?
We did when the divorce happened, because
Which was when?
so I was 9,
Okay.
creeping into 10.
So it didn't work. So when Dad came
Yeah.
back down and,
Yeah.
and chased Mom, and
Well,
they decided to try to remake
yeah,
it work, it didn't.
Because, and this is just also like the oddness of my familial situation, but
Sure.
so he had another affair, which I think was like, God, and again, I honestly don't know. I think
Right.
like the 3rd or maybe 4th. I don't know.
And how would you ever even have that fact anyway?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because my mom doesn't stop talking about it.
But also, sure,
Yeah.
I have one of those as well.
Yeah.
But also, how would she even have all of the honest facts as well? Like,
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
much does she doesn't know? Yeah.
So he
How much does she
had an
doesn't
affair.
know? That's not a
yeah.
that
How
was a
much
terrible sentence.
did she didn't know?
I told you the coffee's kicking in.
Yeah.
My mouth is not gonna be able to catch up with my brain. Sorry, go ahead.
So he started having an affair with the lunch lady of my elementary school at the time.
All right.
Who was
That's-
named Pam. She was the mom to this kid Charlie, which I wasn't really ever friends with. But suddenly, like, Charlie joins my Boy Scout group, and Charlie is on my hockey team, and like we were both really good, and you used to not be able to have two good kids on the same
Right,
team, and
yeah.
I don't know how he finagled that, but he did. And suddenly I'm like having to hang out with Charlie all the time, and I'm like, I don't even fucking like this kid. Why am I hanging out with this kid all the time? And then, like, things start to surface and expose themselves. So there was a period of time where, like, when legit, like, the split happened and my dad moved to an apartment complex, like, up the street, the same
Okay.
apartment complex as Pam, my mom, rightfully so, was losing her mind, just crippling depression.
Oh, that's terrible.
And so my brother was 6, and like,
So at this point now you have a younger brother.
yeah, sorry, I have a younger brother.
Sure. Okay. So he was he around in New York?
No, so he
Oh,
was
he was born in Florida.
Born in Florida, 100% born and raised
to
in
your
Florida.
father.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're all your father's children.
Yep. But yeah, there was this like odd transitional period where, like, when I was 10, I became dad to my brother
Right.
because it was always tumultuous. It was always a fight. Like,
Between mom and dad, you're saying.
between mom, like,
Right.
but when I mean like fight, I mean like move over Holyfield Tyson,
like smash down, throw
like
down, yeah.
smash down, throw TVs, throw plates,
Oh,
like
jeez.
screaming bloody murder, like crippling screams, And so then my sister gets into drugs, but like I was so protective of my little brother. He also doesn't remember any of this stuff.
Right.
Like my brother doesn't even remember my dad living at home. Well, so like here's a perfect example. My brother and I loved watching Dragon Ball Z as kids. And so we would go home and we would watch Dragon Ball Z. But there was a period of time where I would say for a year, I would get Patrick home and we would go in my room and we would put on Dragon Ball Z and we would blast Dragon Ball Z because I knew that my mom and dad were screaming at each other in the living room,
Right.
or like my dad was coming back to get more stuff or something,
Right.
or like Erin was doing her drug thing
Right.
or whatever. And so
and your sister got into that at the age of around like 14 or that young?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, do you feel, this is going to sound so insensitive and shitty, and I apologize to everybody listening there, but also you get it.
Yeah.
Do you think that the fact that you were in Florida led to the ease of that? Because I feel like when I lived in Florida, it was incredible how many people I knew that had teenage drug problems. Meanwhile, I don't remember a single person in my high school that had a drug problem, a teenager.
I think for sure there's something about Florida and pills.
Right?
And I don't know, like, I guess it's one of those expressions like, what's in the water in Florida that makes people want to.
Yeah.
But like at the same time.
It's an easy punchline, but there's something serious there.
Yeah, I think there is something serious there. But like, I go back and forth because like my brother and I were raised under the same roof and we don't do drugs. My brother's a kick-ass vet.
Right.
He's literally a doctor. He's
Nice.
Dr. Brady. You know, I've been out here in Hollywood doing my thing
Right.
and, you know, finding success like a heart monitor. Like some years are great.
Yeah,
some years
like
go down to
it
nothing.
always is.
Yeah.
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah. And then my, like, calling a spade, I can't even say what my sister's greatest accomplishment
That's
is.
sad.
Like,
Are you close with her?
no,
No.
I haven't spoken to her in years.
Man,
Years.
did it get to that point where it was incredibly unfortunate, but also necessary just to sort of let her do what she does? And
Yeah.
it's at some point it became easier, and you just didn't have a choice anymore.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. You didn't have a choice anymore. You can. It's like to try to think along the lines of an addict is the quickest path to insanity.
Wow.
Because
yeah, that's a fucking quote.
you know what I mean?
You're absolutely right.
Like, it really is because, like, so I'm a logical person, right? And I love green tea in the morning, right?
Yeah, by the way, you showed up today
Yeah.
first and probably last. I'm going to say guest to show up and when I open the door, have a mug with tea. Not a travel mug,
No.
but an actual just home ceramic mug with a tea bag in it and hot water, just exposed and open.
Yep.
Anyways, I apologize. So yeah, you love green tea. You're talking about being logical.
Yeah, so like I love green tea, but if green tea like ruined my family and made me go to jail all the time and everyone hated me, I'd be like, well, okay.
Yeah.
I love green tea, but maybe I should just stop drinking green tea since it literally only brings
Right.
pain and destruction and hurt and whatever. Like,
But that's because you and I don't have the disease.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I also feel the same way.
And
Like,
then-
I have close friends who I'm just sort of like, man,
Yeah.
and it's not even necessarily as bad as drug habits, but even if
Yeah.
it's just sort of like, hey, there's this one repetitive pattern or this one thing that you do. And I'm always like, if this is the cause of 90% of your problems, if you could just remove, whether it's, failure to launch or self-sabotage or some sort of character trait. And it's so weird because I'm sure I have one. I'm sure I have multiple ones. And I'm also probably the same way where it's like, oh, I don't realize that that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of it is
Yeah.
that's not the problem. That's probably the solution for their problems
Yeah.
in their minds.
But you also hear that like people don't heal themselves until they want to heal themselves.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I don't know if my sister wants to heal herself because I feel like if
Right.
she did, she would have done it by now.
Right. It's never too late. I will say that.
Yeah.
And there are some people that, that don't start their lives until their 50s.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is
Yeah.
or even later. Like, so, I mean, hold out hope, but
Yeah.
it is unfortunate. That is unfortunate.
And it's
But-
also like, and did you ever listen to Loveline?
yeah, of
with
course.
Doug? Yeah. So
Everybody at my age in New
Yeah,
York
right.
listened to Love
I
Line.
loved the
Stayed
hell
up,
out of that
stayed
show.
up late night watching
Yeah,
it really low
yeah.
so that your parents didn't hear
Yep.
it. And
I'm so sad that show isn't on the air anymore. It was my favorite.
Well,
for
let
years
me
and
just
years.
throw this plug out there. If you did enjoy Loveline, you should check out a brand new podcast. A good friend of the show, former guest Mo Mandel, has a great new show called The Full Release. Him and his girlfriend, who is a doctor and a doctor of sexual medicine, or not sexual medicine. What do you call it? I don't know, whatever. Who is an actual doctor? They have this fantastic new podcast called The Full Release, and it is essentially the pitch is it's Loveline except with them.
I know we have
it's great.
I know we have lovely girlfriends, but the prospect of having a sexual healing doctor as a significant other,
No,
is
could you imagine
awesome.
imagine how awful and critical it must be all the time? Just
No,
like
I mean, maybe, but I also like I could picture coming home and her being like, "So I have this experiment we need to do. We can't go to bed until we've tried." And I'd be like, "You know what? We need to entertain all variables.
sure, you know what? You're absolutely right.
We need to leave
Who
no
am I?
pillow
Who
unturned."
am I to question the professional?
Yeah.
But anyway, so you're talking about listen to Loveline.
So listening, oh God, I lost my train of thought.
I'm so bad at interrupting you.
No, I just started thinking about
Sexual
sexual healing
exploitations.
Or
Or we're talking about addiction.
Oh yeah, okay. So the whole idea that addiction is a disease,
right.
like, or I don't know, the theory that it's a disease or the confirmed thing that it's a disease.
I don't know.
I don't
but
know.
Yeah.
Anyways, like I have cousins who have cystic fibrosis, which is this debilitating disease. They're like sick all the time, and it hurts to breathe, and they're constantly
Right.
taking medicine. And my cousin Haley, who I think is like 24, 25, still has the mentality of a 4-year-old. And like, so when I define a disease, I define a disease as like, oh, you were born with this horrible thing that you don't want,
Right.
and you just have to fight it all the time. And I feel like addiction, although technically it could be a disease, like you did all that shit to yourself, and you can cure your disease by stopping doing the shit that causes the fucking disease.
Yeah, I mean that's a very like plainly.
Yeah.
I mean, again, tell that to an alcoholic, and you
Exactly.
might have an argument on your hands.
But
But
you know
yeah,
what I
I
mean?
get what you're saying.
Like
of course.
I
Yeah.
can't take my cousin Chelsea's head and shake her and go, stop having
Right.
cystic fibrosis.
Right. Or like, you can't rehab cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
Like, there is no. I get it. Yeah.
So like, I think
it's tough to be on the other side of it
I
and not be
know.
critical. That's
I
the
know.
truth. And I feel like that's a reason why there are like support groups for people who are in relationships or have alcoholics in the family or addicts in
Yeah.
the family, because you kind of have to learn how to either see it through their eyes or how to kind of, because that I feel like I would be the worst best friend of an alcoholic.
yeah.
Because I would be that very critical asshole who's like, just don't drink, asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
like it is kind of that easy. Like when you're like, when you're a little kid and they're like, don't do drugs.
right.
I don't think that is how you should educate children in not doing drugs.
You mean
Because
dare
Yeah,
isn't
dare.
working, is what you're saying?
no, because
Dare probably leads more kids into drugs,
Right,
Because they're
because-
like, oh, what's this cool thing?
exactly.
It's edgy. It's
right.
My parents said not to do it, and so did this kid in the T-shirt.
Yeah. And then like you watch movies.
It worked.
And,
I will say this: it worked on me. I'm so completely,
Well,
totally sober, straight
yeah.
edge.
Well, good. Dare worked on Jake Lloyd. Welcome, congratulations, Dare.
I'm the
you
one.
did it. We have a slew of fucking meth heads just crowding Florida's hospitals.
Okay, let me preface: Dare is not the reason that I'm sober and straight edge. Just trying to put that out there.
But like I've never done any hard drugs, but if you look at cinema and and you're like, man, LSD actually seems like the most fun journey
Right.
someone could go on.
Right.
Like I don't want to do LSD because I'm a smart person who like knows what it does to your brain or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, I
That
think
looks
it would-
fun.
Like,
I want to talk to my couch.
yeah.
Right.
But like, if I could tell you right now, like, Jake, we could take this LSD, 0 negative consequences.
Right.
You're not going to be addicted to it. It's not going to hurt your brain or anything. But like, for the next 3 hours, we're just going to talk to your couch and we're going to see colors and we're going to walk to Del Taco, and it might as well be fucking like Frodo going to Helm's Deep because it's going to be that epic.
Right.
Like, that sounds amazing.
One burrito to rule them all.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But
Nah,
then-
it makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I feel like we got a little tangential here, but let me ask you this. What is your current relationship with your father?
So my current relationship with my father is I you kind of had to just like make peace with everything. To be honest, truth be told, once he got married, so he got married to Pam.
Oh, okay.
So
So,
the-
she ended
yeah.
up becoming your stepmother.
So she's been my
and,
stepmom.
And was the name Charlie? Was the name?
Yeah, Charlie.
Charlie became your
and-
stepbrother.
Yeah. But again, like I quite literally never exchange words with Charlie or Candace.
Right.
My other until it's Christmas.
Gotcha.
So it's always really kind of weird.
When did they get married? Was it around that? Was it quickly?
I think I was like 12.
Okay, so you were still
Yeah.
kind
But also,
of a kid.
yeah,
but like you said, you were kind of forced to grow up a little bit quicker because you had to be the
exactly.
paternal father, the paternal
Exactly.
figure to your brother.
But like we have a fine relationship now. You know, for the most part, we just like talk hockey. I will say that my dad did like maybe for the first time kind of ever. He said something to me that was so profound, and I don't think he knows how profound it was. But last year was another like really rough year. And I said this metaphor before, like most careers out here in Hollywood are like a heart monitor.
Right. Yeah.
So if everyone can imagine, like right now with my finger, I'm doing the thing of like it's kind of flatlining
Right.
and then it spikes up.
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way down.
Yeah. And when it goes down below
Yeah.
the middle. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it goes
go
down
to
below
the middle. Yeah.
Exactly. And then like it goes to the middle and it kind of chills
Right.
and then it goes up and then it goes down. So like right now I'm on an up.
Right.
And so you just have to like prepare financially and mentally that like, hey, this is going to stop.
Right.
It's going to level out at some point. But you know, last year I had to have my third wrist surgery.
Yeah.
I lost my SAG health insurance. I wasn't auditioning at all. I mean, you and me could do 15 podcasts about not auditioning in LA.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I was talking to my dad being like, fuck, man, I'm 29. I'm like, I moved my whole life out here and like, I've been on TV shows, I've done commercials, and like, what the fuck? Why is it just dead right now? Why did it stop?
Right.
And my dad said something like, Shane, your journey has just started. He goes, when I was your age, that's when I moved down to Florida to be with your mother again. And I started work as a corrections officer. And he's like, you know, 5 years later, I got my promotion to be a bailiff and, you know, he just retired. So he's like, I didn't know what I was doing at that age. And I had fucking 3 kids
Right.
and a house payment and a car and a marriage in flux and yada, yada. He's like, you're successful. You just don't know it.
Wow.
And
that is really
just
profound.
started,
Yeah.
you know, it was so profound to be like, cause I'm sitting here being like, well, I guess I have to move back to Florida in a few years with my tail between my legs.
Right.
If this whole thing doesn't work out because grandkids, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And like, did that moment aid in your relationship with your father?
I think so, but I think
it's only 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
right? But still.
But I think it's also one of those things of like, it's always what's not being spoken.
Sure, of course.
You know, with my dad and I. So it's almost like there's this overseer on a mountain with his arms crossed, like giving a nod of like,
Right.
yes.
Right. What was your relationship like with your mother through all of this?
So with my mom, it was pretty bad when I was a kid. Now, as I explain this, I'm saying this through the lens of somebody who has now like lived a full life. I would say I've had my heart ripped out of my chest and shattered twice. Like where you're sitting there going, holy fuck. And so I know how that like changes you who you are at your core.
Also, what always gets me is like the age.
Yeah.
Like when you think like, oh, my mother was this age when she had me or whatever. And then you realize like, I couldn't fucking have a kid right now or be dealing with a cheating spouse or this. And you always think of your parents as like, oh, they were adults dealing with adult shit.
Yeah.
And then once you catch up to that age, you realize like, oh, they didn't have any fucking idea.
Yep.
Because I don't have any fucking idea.
So I think like, and I'm probably getting these numbers wrong, but I think my dad was 19 and my mom was 20 when they had my sister.
Wow.
So they got married because that's what Catholics do. You got pregnant, so you get married, and then
she probably should have never been married.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But you know, it made me and it made my brother. And so I think what it was is I think my mom was having the world's most normal reaction to a cheating husband and having to try to raise 3 kids and a house and a car and work 2 jobs, and you're doing it all fucking alone. Sometimes my grandpa would help, you know?
Right.
So, but like as a kid, you just remember like, why does mom literally always yell and cry? That's all she ever does.
Right.
And sometimes I tell that to my mom and she like, you see her heartbreak because she's like, your childhood was great.
Yeah.
Like you were always smiling and playing and having fun in the pool. And I'm like, maybe it's the, you know, just the human psyche of what we
The
compartmentalize
lens.
and remember,
The
like
lens.
the lens. But
my mother refuses to acknowledge any negative things about our childhood whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, I will literally. I mean, I left home when I was a teenager.
yeah,
And like literally went and lived with family and other friends because the relationship was so bad. In high school, I was,
Mhm.
and we had to have talks about me like finding things that she was keeping from me at 9 and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And like to this day, it's that stuff didn't happen. It's,
Yeah.
my brother always says rainbows and butterflies. Like that was when my mother looks back, it's all rainbows and butterflies. And that's not to say that our mothers didn't do a great job with what they were given. I mean,
Yeah.
they were both given shit hands.
Yeah.
Really shit hands. And yeah, maybe we were happy kids in the
Mhm.
sense that we were fed, like you said just at the top
Yeah.
of the show. You lived a pretty normal lower middle class. That I was the same way. I always had a bike to ride. I always
Yeah.
had like,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that we weren't unaware of some of the problems and that we
Yeah.
weren't affected by the problems.
Yes.
We were still children.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I feel like, parents can't understand. There's a quote that I've mentioned on this show quite a few times from the television show Casual, which I absolutely love. And that quote is, we spend our entire lives waiting for an apology from our parents, and they spend theirs waiting for a thank you.
I love that.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
but in any case, so you were saying that you look back and you totally sort of empathize with your mother nowadays.
Yeah.
And it makes
And, like,
yeah.
Yeah. My relationship with my mom, I'd probably say like since age 18 for sure, like could not be better.
Right.
We
Yeah.
talk like minimum every 2-3 days
Oh,
for sure.
Wow. Jeez.
She's gonna be
Hope my
coming.
mom's not listening. Don't expect it, Mom. Don't expect it. I love you to death, but come on. Phone works 2 ways, and we got like maybe once every month.
Well, like okay, so
I'm kidding. That sounds so dickish.
no, but so I will say like so my mom helped adopt my little sister Tatum, who now is I want to say 7. And so I remember 7 years ago when my mom's, in essence, her second divorce was happening, with my stepdad that she was with for 10, 11 years.
So she did get remarried.
They didn't get remarried, and that's why they broke up, but they were together for 10
Oh,
years,
it
and they
was
were
one of
like
those sort of-
supposed to get married,
Right.
but then
Right.
whatever. I remember she used to call me like 8 times a day
Wow.
when she was having her like version 2.0 of breaking down. But now
Right.
I'm in Chicago, so I can't, and my cousin Justine had a kid and she couldn't care for it. I won't get into all the nitty gritty of that.
Sure.
But my mom and my Aunt Priscilla ended up adopting her. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
I remember there was a day where like I didn't hear from my mom at all. And she always called all the time. And I remember being like, oh, wait, fuck, did something happen? And I called her and I hear a crying baby. And I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, I'm taking care of Tatum. I'll call you later. And so the world's most amazing thing happened. My mom took this baby that needed 24/7 care.
Right.
And my mom was overweight and very sad at the time. And within like 6 months, my mom lost all this weight because she bought all organic food and like
Right.
all of her mommy bells and whistles turned back on.
Oh, wow.
And she like put all of her energy into this baby. And our next door neighbor, Roberta, ended up becoming like Nanny McPhee, like the world's greatest nanny,
Sure.
because she had to retire from being a nurse because she like had diabetes and it like hurt for her to like move around.
Wow.
So she would like help out my mom, and my mom would be like, okay, but like if I'm getting healthy and the baby's getting healthy, then you have
Then
to
you
get
have to-
healthy.
wow.
So you have to like take her on walks. On
What
the
a
stroller, around
beautiful
the
story.
Dude,
Yeah.
it was amazing. So now like
It was like-
Roberta is 100% part of our family. She's always there for like Christmas morning and stuff. And it's been this 7-year journey of like I can unabashedly say that I had never in my life seen my mom happier
Right.
than when she was single and just hanging out with
With Hank,
Tatum,
Being
like,
being a mom.
being a mom.
Being a mom.
But she like found
versus
out.
being a wife or a
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
Wow.
like found herself probably for the first time since she was 19.
Wow. So we have a lot in common as far as like things that occurred in our childhood that probably set us down certain paths. But you and I, as similar as we are quite different in a lot of ways. Like, is there anything that you think you can point to in yourself that you're like, oh, this this that I have right here is because of that.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't do heavy drugs because my sister is such a piece of shit.
Right.
I don't cheat, and I treat cheating probably a lot harsher
Right.
than most anyone else would
Right.
because of my dad.
Yeah.
And you just like, it's so much cleaner to just be like, hey, I would rather just break up with you and go do like
Right.
because as toxic and shitty as that's going to be,
Right.
it's 800 times worse
Right.
to like go behind someone's back. And so if somebody double crosses me or cheats me or like I will be so quick to turn my fucking back to you.
Right.
Because if I trust you with my trust and my love and my heart
Right.
and my soul and my whatever,
Right.
and you as a friend or a girlfriend or whatever fucking break it, like, you son of a bitch, I trusted you
Right.
to value this and you didn't, so fuck you.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like you were always protective of your mother?
Oh yeah.
And do you think that lent itself to being protective of your friends and your sort of adult family, the family that your adopted family?
Yeah, for sure. And that's another reason why I had to turn my back on my sister, because it just came down to like, it's fine if you mess with me. Stop fucking with my mom.
Right.
Stop ruining my mom's life.
Sure.
Stop making my mom cry. Like my brother and I kind of had to have the world's most minor intervention because my mom, like any mother, you know, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. She just constantly is trying to fix my sister, but there's no fixing her. You can't fix her. She has to fix herself, and that's it. So, you know, after the tens of thousands of dollars of rehab and paying for her 7 DUIs and court fees and all this other shit.
She's literally like just an absolute, I mean, I hate to use a term, it's horrible, but she's sort of a leech on your mom.
She's a billion% a leech. She's a fucking suction cup.
Right,
she's an
right.
underwater vacuum.
Right.
You know?
Oh, that's really unfortunate. And like, I could, again, like you said, you're not a parent. I couldn't fathom being able to not do that to a child, or like, and to be able to go like, listen, you got to do what you do now. Yeah. Wow, that's really tough.
Yeah.
That's really tough.
And so, yeah, the world's tiniest intervention was my brother and I basically being like, you can choose to put your energy into Shane and Patrick,
right,
or Erin,
right,
but you no longer get all three.
Wow. So
choose.
Right.
So you either are going to spend
Right.
your whole life trying to fix Erin, and that means that you don't get to talk to Shane and Patrick as much anymore, or you talk to Shane and Patrick, and we have to. You can't let Erin live with you anymore.
Interesting.
You can't let Erin come over. You can't give Erin money.
Is this a bluff? Was this your way of getting her to just cut her off?
No, it was
Really?
not a bluff, because
It was affecting you guys that much.
It was affecting it. Well, it's because, like, so I would say, so the timelines are going to get messed up, but I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a conversation with my mom where I was like, you no longer are allowed to call me saying, you won't believe what Erin did.
Oh, right.
Because I'm telling you right
Yeah.
now, if you let Erin live in the house, I'm telling you,
Right.
she's gonna steal your shit. She's gonna drink all your Listerine.
Right,
She's
right,
gonna
right.
fucking ruin everything.
Right.
So you're not allowed to call me crying because I don't want to hear my mom cry anymore.
Wow.
And then,
Oh, God, that's heartbreaking.
yeah. So then, like a year later, she calls me and she's like, "Hey, so the cops were involved and I found needles."
And you're like,
and I'm like,
what did I talk about?
Yeah, I said, I told you don't let her fucking live there.
Right.
And it happened. So then, yeah, you feel, you know, as a child, you're like, again, I'm not a parent, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I don't know what Erin was like as an adorable 5-year-old playing in the sand.
You don't have that
And that's what my
memory in your
mom
head
sees.
of mom's little girl and that sort of thing.
I only have memories of my sister being a bitch.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate too when other family problems affect relationships that should have no problem.
Yeah.
And I have that problem in our family. Everybody does. But, you know, my sister and my mother don't talk. They haven't spoken in years. My mother has grandchildren she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because they don't talk. And there's
so why don't they talk?
why doesn't my mom and my sister
Yeah.
talk? Great question, Shane. Nobody knows. It's one of those things where it's all this hearsay about like, oh, somebody said this and somebody said this, but nobody has any real facts. And the truth is none of it probably happened.
Yeah.
They probably don't talk because they're so similar that they can't stand each other. It's that sort of thing. And I got to the point where I had to tell not just my mother, but my sister, my godmother. I had to tell everybody. Like the second you start a sentence that is your mother or your sister or your auntie, I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I don't care. Right? Like it's that thing where
finish your story.
Well, that's pretty much it. Like I had to say, like I have to let them know, like, you know what? I love my sister to death. I love my mother to death. I love my godmother to death. I love my brother. Like I love every member of my family, and no member of my family has done anything to me that has made me say I can't talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
And what you guys have going on has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And I'm sick of fucking hearing it.
Yeah.
Because I have lived my entire life in the middle of two people.
Yeah.
I lived the entire life in the middle of my mom and my sister, of my Auntie Anna and my mother, of my father and my mother, of my sister and my brother, like as the guy who is close with two people who can't stand each other. And those two people have shifted throughout the years, but I've always been in that spot. And it comes a point where I'm just like, I'm fucking done. I'm absolutely fucking done.
I have had, this is creepy because I've had the exact same argument with my mom. And when I mean exact same, like my spine tingled when you said that, because this is just like another thing of like, yeah, we kind of are the same person.
Yeah.
I think I was like 17 or something. And this is also one of the things that brought my mom and I think together a little more, because the argument was something like my mom was upset with my stepdad at the time. She was upset because my dad needed to like help pay a bill for my wrist surgery, because that was my first wrist surgery when I was 17. And so the only way you got anything from my dad is if I called.
Right.
My sister was running around doing drugs with whatever the fuck she was running around doing it. And so like I come home from refereeing roller hockey. I have all this homework to do, you know, and my mom shouting said something like, you need to call your father and say, how could you do this to my mother? And you need to call your sister and say, you need to do this. And you need to call your, and I remember I just blew up at her and I said, I did not fucking marry Kevin Brady. Yeah. I did not fucking birth Aaron Brady. Right. I didn't do any of this shit. So you need to call your ex-husband. Right. You need to call your daughter, because to me, it's dad and Aaron, and I kind of don't give a fuck about either of them right now.
Right.
Like,
oh God.
And so,
and do you feel like because you come from this sort of warring home, that it has made you more of a family man or less of a family man? Because I have had people tell me like, Jake, why do you, like, a family is really important to me. And I've had people tell me like all the time, why? Like, fuck those people. Those people are highly problematic for your emotional state and being. Yeah. Yet, for me, and it's not just blood anymore. It's like my family. Like you know, I think one of the reasons that we bonded when we first started working on Pinch and we started working on projects together is just like, I am of the ilk where now as an adult with an adopted family here in Los Angeles, of not just creatives but just people that I love, people that I see more than my actual family and talk to more than my actual family. Like, we should all be in the same group climbing together. Yeah. Whatever that climb is it an emotional climb? Is it personal growth? Is it professional growth? Is it maturity, financial? We should all be doing that together as a family. Yeah. And I get very sensitive when I'm either excluded from a family venture, whether it be professional or something personal in that sense. And I feel like it's because of where I come from, because like I've watched this broken, tattered family. But
do you also think it comes down to like, so I look at my life out here and there's, and I know you don't get to go back to Long Island really much ever. You know, you only got to go.
Got to take Alexandra this last year, which I was very thankful for Pinch for the Long Island premiere of the film. Yeah, and that was great. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do that without Alexandra. Yeah. So I mean that. Yeah.
So I do think there's a thing, because I get to go home once a year, and you know, it's typically for like a 2-week block, typically around Christmas time. And this thing happens where you go home, and for the first like 5 days, you're like, man, this is really nice. I get to just like sit by the beach or something. Yeah. I just have like, you know, maybe like a beer in my hand, or like I'm like getting amazing Greek food and it's great. And then day 6, you like your fingers kind of start doing this, and you're like, you know, I really should work on that writing thing that I'm kind of working on. And then like by day 10, you're like, I kind of I kind of haven't like done anything creative
Right,
at all. And I wonder if there's like that seed in everybody. So when you're in this like hometown and you don't have a creative outlet, because I do think every human at their core
Right.
wants some sort of creative
And
outlet.
that creative outlet isn't always necessarily art. It could be your profession that you do. Whatever the thing is that you do that at the end of the day you feel emotionally rewarded, that's what your outlet is.
So I think people, if they don't have that, I think the only thing they can do is they have to gossip.
Right.
And then people start hating each other.
Well, that's
because
a good point.
Because they're like, well, I don't know what to do with all this energy. So then you just, well, did
Right.
you hear that this person did this? And well, I can't believe this. Like you inherently need to manifest drama in your life where there kind of is none.
Right. Yeah. You're not wrong at all. That is definitely part of it. I actually don't have that sort of like day 1 through day 10 thing because my family is so segregated at this point that every day is a different person. Like, and this is something. So in addition to all the other family drama, my godparents recently separated. And that was really weird for me because that was like the last successful relationship in my life.
How old are they?
50s now. I'm trying to do math. Or 50s. But they were together for over 30 years.
Yeah, clearly.
I think they got married the year before I was born, so they're probably 36 years they were together, whatever it was. And they have my cousins, and that household, as much as it was a household divided, growing up, that was the Norman Rockwell family. They were the mom and dad are together, 2 kids who were very great, responsible.
Yeah.
She's
clearly
a total.
That'll always work.
She's a total matriarch. He's like they were the American family for years, and so as an adult, it's weird. It's still like it's like even though they're not my parents, they are like my parents, and them being separated is still really weird for me. And I know that that's a very selfish way to look at it, but it's your adult child of divorce kind of thing. But going back there, staying in the house with one of them not being there is very weird.
Yeah,
very weird. But here's the thing: is I was there with my girlfriend, who none of these people had met yet, and so. We were only there for maybe 3 or 4 days, 5 days, whatever it was. But because the family was so segregated, it was literally like, oh, this day you're meeting this person, and then this day this person, and we couldn't have a big gathering where everybody's together because nobody fucking talks to anybody.
Doesn't that make you jealous of people? Like sometimes I'll go on Instagram or something, and they're like,
with the family,
it's our whole family that we all love each other, and everything's great. And I'm like, what is that like?
I talk about this all the time with some of my cousins because I feel like our generation, my cousins. We have avoided mostly. There's some new things have come to light, but we've mostly avoided that Reuter gene that is the siblings all hate each other, or that generation all hates each other.
Yeah.
And we are all really close. My cousins are all like my brothers, But we talk about it all the time where I'm like, what is the event that everybody will show up to?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. People talk about it being my wedding.
Yeah.
But of course. Where am I going to have a wedding that people are going to be able to make it to? Like, I don't know what the event is going to be that gets everybody together. I didn't have everybody show up to the premiere of my movie in New York because I didn't want to be there because I knew this person was coming and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it's at that point, it's a little selfish, and it really bothers me that you not wanting to see certain people.
Well, it's also because none of it is your fault.
Exactly.
None of that shit is your fault, and none of that shit was my fault or like with my brother's wedding. Everyone on his wife's side is 100% normal, and they all get along, and everything's great. And then when it came time to like, oh wait, my mom and dad are gonna be in the same room,
right? Like
the same room for hours.
Yeah.
What the hell is that gonna be like?
You know what? So here's my story with that. That irritates me because the lesson that I have learned in my experiences is what it's going to be is absolutely fucking fine.
Yeah.
And it's not worth all the drama. Years and years and years ago, I was in New York for a short film that I had made, Skull Rosary. My mother came down from upstate in Buffalo, New York, where she lives. And my sister was going to go, and they hadn't seen each other in years, talked to each other, whatever their problems were. And everybody in the family was like, "Oh, you need to tell your sister. You need to tell your sister that your mom's going to be there." And I'm like, "Why? It's not my fucking problem."
Yeah.
And everybody, my sister-in-law in Vegas, my godmother, my Aunt Anna, everybody's like, Jake, you have to tell her. You have to tell. Why are and it's going to be this big problem if you don't. And to the point where I literally broke down emotionally. I started crying.
Yeah.
And like screaming at my family members, like, this isn't my fucking problem. Like, I'm so sick of being in the middle. I don't want to tell anybody anything. Deal with your own shit. And it became this big deal, this big weight that was on my shoulders, and it drove me fucking crazy. And so I broke down and I told her, and of course I got attitude about, well, great, we'll see how that goes. And that stresses me out even more because I can't again, like we talked about earlier, I don't want you to hear, don't talk shit about my mom, don't talk shit about my sister, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
And guess what? Everybody came and it was fine.
Yep.
There was no problem. So much so that I was bothered that there wasn't a fight.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is, guess what? You don't have to like each other to all be in the same room for a little while or be at the same event for a little while.
Yeah.
And just simply enjoy the family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there. We have a huge family. A lot of siblings, a lot of cousins, a lot of everybody, friends. Like, we're a big extent of, like, you could go the entire time and not even talk to the person and it's fine.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing really bugs me. Furthermore, my cousin's wedding of my godparents, who again recently separated, like, they're at the wedding and they're, like, what are my godmother, my godfather gonna like at this wedding? And I'm getting emotional just remembering it. Like, they danced together and they they walked down the aisle together, and it was like it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, they're gonna get back together, but it was just that moment of like, it can be fine.
Yeah.
It can be absolutely fine. And so much pressure is put on sort of that, like, oh, we can't be in the same room, or we can't go to an event because this person hates this person. And at the end of the day, all you're doing is you're taking away from everybody else.
Yeah.
And there were people who were excluded from that wedding for this reason. And they say, oh, I don't want this person there because I don't want there to be a fight and you to make it about them. Well, guess what? The fact that they weren't there made the entire event about them.
Yeah.
Because the question the entire day wasn't, oh, doesn't the bride look beautiful? Oh, isn't this going to be a great wedding? It was, where is blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Why are blah, blah, blah not here?
Exactly.
And then it's like, guess what? You were trying to avoid something, you made it happen.
Yeah.
But inversely, the one thing that everybody anticipated was going to be a problem once again proved itself to not be a problem. And that's not to say that things couldn't be volatile, but again, these are my experiences, which is why it frustrates me so much that people have this sort of, I can't go there, I can't be with this person, or because it's selfish.
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, because like all weddings that I've been to have been fine, but almost like even this past Christmas Eve, I almost got in a fist fight with so I have two Uncle Joes, which is funny. My Aunt Priscilla was married.
You never thought to call one of them Joseph?
Well, it's because my Aunt Priscilla married Joe number 1, right? Joe R. And then they got a divorce, and months later, she ended up dating a doctor named Joe D. So, and they were together since I was like,
the best part about
9.
that?
What?
She didn't have to worry about that tattoo she got.
Exactly, right?
She was able to leave that first tattoo. Like,
so,
hey, who's Joe? Oh,
yeah,
that's
Joe.
me.
Oh, yeah, it's Joe. So I we'll call him Joe number 2,
okay.
right? Just chronologically,
sure. Yeah.
Right? But I consider him my uncle because I knew him my whole life.
Yeah.
Now he passed away December 11th, just this last year. And Joe number 1, without getting into semantics, was he basically tried to start a fist fight on Christmas Eve.
Oh.
Because
Pum.
right, exactly. Yeah. Because he was upset that Priscilla emotionally couldn't sit through the Christmas Eve mass service,
right?
Because her spouse just died 2 weeks prior,
right?
And Joe number 1 wants to see his granddaughter more often, my sister Tatum,
right.
But he also lives 45 minutes away, and he expects people to like drive her to his house and stuff,
right?
And so like mass ends, and he's like, "Oh, typical. Priscilla leaves mass, and now someone's got to drive Tatum to Priscilla." And it's like, "Hey, her husband died 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about you and your little gripe with wanting to see." But like,
people can't see past their fucking nose, man.
Yeah. So the whole thing of like, it'll be fine. I sit there going, yeah, it probably would. But with some people, like,
You know what? You're right. So
hey, it's Christmas Eve and someone just died. Maybe let's not start a fight now.
So let me rephrase it then. Instead of saying it will be fine, it can be fine.
Yes.
I think that's more of the lesson in my experiences. You're right, because there definitely are some things where I'm just sort of like, God, that could be problematic, but it doesn't have to be. Like, I feel like if you approach these scenarios with a sense of vitrolic fucking, like God, I don't know. I obviously I don't have the answers, or else my family would all talk to each other because I would have healed it. But
like the actual sentence that Joe number 1 said, verbatim, word for word, because I remember it because it was so contradictory and it didn't make sense. He said, "I'm going to war. War is coming. I'm bringing war."
Jesus Christ, Game of Thrones, fucking relax,
right? And then, comma, "we need to heal this family."
Oh, okay, so he's warring against war.
And so I was like, wait a minute. You're saying you're going to war, which the semantics meant he was like going to get a lawyer to like try to gain custody of blah blah blah, but then
to heal the family.
Yeah, to heal. So since we can't heal the family, I'll get lawyers to go to war to heal the family.
Yeah. Because everybody knows
that's the solution.
Yeah, everybody knows that the solution to a broken family is lawyering up and settling it in court. And of course, the word war in general.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, God, Shane, this has been an absolute fantastic conversation thus far. We kind of got a great tangent. I kind of figured you and I might do this because I do feel like we are very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so personal about everything and letting me vent as well. But we would be remiss if I didn't ask you at least a little questions about the profession and what led you here.
Yeah.
And this has been so family driven so far, which I absolutely love. But just to kind of sidestep this for a moment, what got you into the entertainment industry? Do you think that the escapism as a child sort of led you to this? Like when hockey was no longer on the cards after a tragic accident, what found you going, you know what? I like saying words in front of people.
Yeah. So there were probably 3 little nudges and then 1 giant push.
Okay.
So, I break my neck. What do you do now? I can't play hockey anymore. So one of the things that I could do with a broken neck was play guitar, because I could lay flat in my bed and I could just pluck away at the guitar and you're not looking at the guitar. So I got really good because you're just having to learn where the fingering goes. And so there was a talent show and I started a shitty little band in high school and on stage playing guitar, nothing cooler. Nothing cooler. You feel like a literal rock star. So that was the first thing of like, oh, being on stage, that's cool. Everyone always said I was like the class clown or like the funniest. Yeah, the ham. So that was nudge number 1. Nudge number 2 was we did this play in high school called Tales of Trickery.
Okay.
And there were only like, I think 3 speaking roles and everyone else was puppets, acting everything out. It was a show intended for children. Like elementary schools would come to our high school.
Right, I gotcha.
And so I was male storyteller. And so I'm speaking for almost the entirety of this 30-minute play.
Right.
And I had to do like 17 different voices during this play. And so we take the play to States, which is when in high school, it's like, oh, this is the big deal. We're going to States. And so we go to States and everybody from all around Florida goes to Orlando. And at the end of the competition, they give 5 awards to the 5 best actors amongst all of the plays of all of the high schools.
Nice.
And the whole weekend, I'm sitting there watching people singing their heads off and, the cryy, amazing monologues. And this is also, mind you, the first play I have ever done in my life.
Right.
The Goofy Little Kids Show.
Yeah. You're a kid yourself.
Yeah, and I'm a kid myself. I'm like 17. And I won one of the awards, one of the 5 best actors in all of Florida. And you get to talk to the adjudicators. And I was like, why the hell did I win this? This does not make sense. I just sat on a pillow and talked. And one of the adjudicators goes, to be honest, the show started, I'm like dressed like Aladdin. I come out with a pillow and I go, welcome to the Tales of Trickery. And I sit on the pillow. They said, we thought you were just like the kid they threw a bone to. And you can say the first line, but then sit on the corner and watch the play.
Right.
And they said it was about 20 minutes into the show. And one of the adjudicators goes, is that kid voicing all the puppets?
Oh, right.
They're like no, all the people behind those puppet masks are talking. She goes, I think that one kid is voicing all the puppets.
Wow.
And then they look at me and they see, yeah. I'm like kind of gesturing to the kids and I'm voicing all the puppets. And they were like, we cannot believe that you could have conversations with yourself while the puppets moved.
Yeah, that's hard.
And so they gave it to me. So I was like, man, I might be actually good at this.
Right.
And so then, as I talked about earlier, I went to Florida State for a girl. Her name was Shannon. I was like, for certain, dated her for 4 years. I'm like, this is the girl I'm going to marry. Like, and we would talk openly about it with each other.
Sure.
And I think she had a crisis because her mother was passing away from cancer.
Oh.
And she confided in me that her mom, who had only been with one person her whole life, kind of regretted it. Like legit kind of regretted only being with the husband who was kind of shitty.
Right.
So the mom was like, I kind of wish I at least dated more and didn't just pick Warren because he was the first person that I ever fell in love with. And
that's kind of what she was doing to you.
I was only with Shannon. Shannon was only with me since we were like 14. And so,
and I mean, she's right.
Yeah, she's right.
Her mom,
she is right. Yeah, she's right. And it's brought me to this point in my life, and I'm very happy. And Shannon is married with this guy Tom and has a kid, and she's very happy.
It wasn't like the one guy after you, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the one guy after
that would
me.
Be really
that would have
shitty.
sucked. Yeah, that would have really sucked. But we did go to Florida State, and Shannon did say, "Hey, and I didn't want to be undeclared when I went to college,
Okay.
so I just picked theater.
Gotcha.
I was like, I'll just pick it. I'll probably drop it after fucking. I just don't want to be undeclared, so I'll pick theater
because you saw it as an easy sort of option.
Exactly, because I was actually going to do theater and nursing at the same time, because maybe I was going to be a nurse,
sure,
or do something in the medical field. And so Shannon, the first week of college, goes, "Hey, I want to take a break." And the break actually was she went and started hooking up with this guy named Corey Bilbo. His fucking name was Corey Bilbo. I'm like, you fucking leave me for a guy named Corey Bilbo?
Was she a big Tolkien fan? Maybe she was into it.
Maybe she was a huge fucking Tolkien fan. So she like,
do me a favor, just lower that mic a hair because you're sort of leaning back. And
Sure. So she like broke up with me and dated this guy for a year, and then so because of that, I had all these like emotions to deal with.
Right.
And I was able to channel it into my acting work.
Into the theater program.
Because I always, like, as much as I look and sound like a bro, I always got straight A's.
Oh, you are such a bro.
I know I'm a bro. Yeah.
You are the most bro-y. you are hands down the most bro-y, deep individual that I love talking to that exists.
Yeah.
Like you, and I feel like at any moment you might drop your pants and be like, check out my thumb because it's hilarious.
Well, it's true because I just filmed Ricky Bates' movie on Thursday, and I play the guy that can't get his dick hard because I did too much coke.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. That's perfect.
Shane Brady.
But the joke is I've never done coke, so like that's the funny thing.
Sure,
but like I just look like the guy who
we get it.
would do too much coke at a party.
Your motif.
And so so I had like I kept shocking all of my professors and acting coaches and everything because, again, I think I also had a green mohawk. So I look like a fuck bro. I have this green mohawk. I'm like constantly taking my shirt off because I'm like, I have abs at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And, but it would be
just chest bumps for days.
Yep, exactly.
Chest bumps for days.
But it'd be like time to show up to do your monologue or something. And I would always, I knew it backwards and forwards, and I would have my notes, and people would be like, "That's actually really fucking good." Like,
were you always diligent in school and stuff like that? So even as a kid, you were really diligent. Because I feel like that's a good word to describe a Shane Brady. It's like you definitely are never one to steer from work. I would never consider you a lazy person. Yeah. Which again juxtapose your broness. Yeah, right. Because I bet you people looked at you like, oh, this jock doesn't get any grades whatsoever. Exactly. But I feel like you're a really hard worker. You've always been a hard worker. Whenever I've helped you shoot something that you've written or something like that, I'm always impressed with the research. I'm always impressed with sort of like the bureaucracy of some of the things that we do. Yeah. And I'm the same way. I am very diligent. I mean, you see like when I show up to stuff with my documents and my pay, like everything. Yep. So you were always that way. I was not. That was something that I learned as an adult. Yeah.
Well, I think mine was out of necessity because again, it was this thing of like, I wanted my brother to have a role model of like, hey, my sister's not going to do it. My dad's not going to do it. My mom's working 2 jobs. She can't do it.
Yeah.
So
it's great. It's motivation. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And and now he's a doctor.
Right.
He's a vet.
All because of you?
All because of me.
So you were saying that was probably the other big push of like, oh, this is
Yeah.
something that I'm really good at because I'm channeling all these emotions.
Yep. And I feel like everybody who chooses to do this as a profession has had this moment. They've had this exact moment
Okay.
where I'm watching other people and I'm going, you fucking suck.
Mm-hmm.
Dude. You do you have nothing to pull from?
Yeah.
Do you did you even learn your fucking lines? Are you listening?
Right. Yeah.
Like you're just talking. You're just on stage and talking, and I could mop the fucking floor with this role.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That is exactly for me. I don't know that it was necessarily acting that I ever had that moment. Because I jumped into acting into high school like most people do, and I was just balls to the wall that whole time. But I think for me, it wasn't until I befriended the film department director at University of Tampa, and all of a sudden I was the main guy in all of these student films because he took a liking to me, and I was like a little bit older than them, so I was a quote adult for all these film school kids who were like, oh, we need an adult in our shit, and I'm willing to show up and act.
Yeah.
But it was watching film school students create films and me being like, wait, that's what you're going to do with the camera?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to make this look like? Wait, this is the script that we're going to do? And it never dawned on me that this was a thing that I could do.
Yeah.
Until I saw that other people were doing it very badly.
And since we're both such diligent people, to this day, it'll probably never end. I still self-submit on Actors Access because instead of I still take acting classes from here and there, but I'd rather just go audition.
Right.
Because then it's like you get the juices flowing.
Exactly.
And but to this day, I'll get a script and it's like, hey, you have an audition on Friday for the short film X, and you look at it and you're like, motherfucker,
terrible.
You didn't even use Final Draft? Or do you not know what a slug line is?
What did you write the script in MS Paint? What are you doing?
Dude, I got to tell you the exact sentence. I auditioned for something yesterday where the actual action line was he irrigates his insides with industrial red wine.
Oh.
And I'm like, did you finish vaping and did the microwave go ding and you're like, my taquitos are done as you chug your Mountain Dew and you're like, he irrigates his inside. Like, you don't have to use all these superfluous fucking adjectives, self-righteous artist with your short film.
That is where we're very similar.
Yeah.
All right, get rid of this. Get rid of this bullshit.
Just
say
the
meat.
He takes a fucking swig of red wine.
You can even put fucking in there. I'd approve of that.
Who gives a shit? Like me as an actor, I'm like, wait, I have to irrigate my insides with industrial red wine.
I love that.
No one gives a fuck. Just write your goddamn script.
So at that point, you're just balls to the wall. You see these other people doing something that you think you can do better, and then you're in it.
Yeah.
Since you've been out, when did you move to LA? Out with the whole group?
So after college, I actually I didn't know if I wanted to be a professional magician or an actor.
That's right. We didn't even talk at all. This is a whole other podcast. When you come back, we'll have the magic podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing I'm fascinated in. Is you're a sleight of hand magician.
Yeah.
What would you call it? Short,
just
small,
up close sleight of hand card magician.
Right. So you're not like a big illusionist, but
I have done all those tricks.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's not what you do right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's all expensive.
And every now and then you do work at the Magic Castle here in LA, which I'm sure people have heard of, know about. It's a really legendary building, which is a fantastic place. And it's a whole facet of you that is one of those things. It's like, oh, that's right. Shane's a magician. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So we'll have that podcast. But so you didn't know at one point whether you were going to do actor or magic.
Yeah. And so I did Busch Gardens Howlow Scream, which is their answer for Halloween Horror Nights. And I was the plant in the audience, and I was the shill, which means you're like the right-hand man to the magician.
Sure.
And like if he shattered his ankle, the show would go on with me.
Right.
And so I had to learn how to do all of his tricks.
Right.
And it was all these grand stage illusions. And I was okay at card tricks, but not the best. And this girl that I was dating, Bianca, cheated on me at the time again, right? Like I lost my mind because I got cheated on.
Right, yeah.
And so this guy, Jason, refused to show me any of his card tricks. And so this was like week 2 of us working together for 3 months. And I show up and I had bought a 6-pack of bicycle cards. And I slam one down in front of him and I go, my girlfriend just fucking cheated on me with this guy named Kyle and I'm fucking losing my shit. Teach me a goddamn trick. And so he was like, all right, here.
He was like, oh God.
He's like, learn this shuffle.
Right.
He goes, learn this shuffle. And when you know how to do this shuffle, come back tomorrow and I'll teach you something else. I came back 10 minutes later and I was like, here you go, look.
Right.
And he's like, do that again. I did it. He's like, all right, well, here's this. So over the course, like we bonded. He's still a dear friend of mine. He lives in Vegas. He performs at the Venetian. His name's Jason Byrne. But that was a huge like improvement to me getting better at magic.
Right.
But so then I decided to move to Chicago because my naivety thought that I would go to Chicago, and I'm like, I'll do a few commercials. I'll get on a couple TV shows, say a line or two, really build my resume, and then I'll move to LA.
Right.
The plan was always to move to LA.
Sure.
I just thought I'll do the stepping stone of Chicago. I did Second City. I did Improv Olympics. I graduated thinking like, oh, well, you just need to get that improv stuff and then you'll be good. I performed magic all over Chicago. That's what like helped me make money.
Right.
And I did 7 stage shows in 2 years while in Chicago.
Wow.
And people say that you're lucky to do like 2 a year. So I knew that I was doing well, but I was broke.
Yeah.
I was beyond broke. So moved to LA, crashed on Aaron Moorhead's couch. And so I've been in LA now for 5 years. So it's April, 5 years and 4 months.
That's it?
That's it.
I feel like I've known you much longer than that.
Right?
But I must have only met. So when we first met, that's probably around the time that you had just got here, no?
Yeah. Like 25.
Right. Yeah.
24, 25. Yeah, 25.
For you. Yeah.
And you know, again, it's the whole heart monitor thing. Like the first year out here, I like transitioned into being a SAG actor, but did a whole bunch of commercials. And for the first time was like making a little money. And then, you know, the year after that, I did a handful of TV shows and a bunch more commercials. And I started getting really big into voiceover. And I did like 6 voiceover commercials that year. And then, you know, so you think it's always going to go up and up and up.
Sure.
And then it plummets because of our surgery. And then it tapers out. Like right now, if we did this podcast 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, fuck Hollywood, fuck everything. Like,
right, of course. Yeah.
But like,
yeah, the mood from week to week out here
it's insane,
is really maddening.
Yeah.
Where are our mom and dad as far as support is going throughout all of this?
They're 100% supporting.
Yeah,
they're
totally in it. That's great. I mean, I guess when you have the brother who's the doctor, you can kind of have a free ride.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, Shane's not high on mescaline and methadone, and he's doing great. But the other fucked up thing is like, you could be James Gunn.
Sure.
James Gunn was the guy that did a bunch of trauma movies that no one cared about and no one saw, and then like somehow, some way got the meeting and pitched his angle for Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're like, yeah, sure. And now he's James Gunn and he makes $200 million movies, and he casts his siblings and friends in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's like,
again, family. We should all be climbing and growing together. Yeah.
And so it's that like the jumps that happen out here are extraordinary.
Yeah.
They're truly extraordinary.
They really are.
You know?
Speaking of the family and climbing together, we've mentioned him a couple times on the show, Aaron Moorhead, who is the co-director and director of photography for The Endless. Him and his creative partner, Justin Benson. This is their 3rd feature film. And this now, their new movie, The Endless, again, working with your family. You are in The Endless, which is available if you live in a big city right now, probably in a theater.
Yeah, so you would have to go to theendless-movie.com.
Okay.
And so it's playing in like Boston, Austin, Cincinnati, New York, LA.
Major cities.
Like, and then like next week it also comes out in a whole bunch more cities. And then next week it comes out.
More,
So it's an odd theatrical
it's a rollout.
release. Yeah, it's a rollout.
I mean, a movie that is 100% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, which
first movie to be 100% in 2018.
Yes.
Which is incredible.
Yes.
This movie is being lauded by everybody. Guillermo del Toro has spoken highly about it. Like there is major hype behind this movie, and rightfully so.
The interesting thing is it all feels the same.
Right.
There's a funny thing like, you know,
you've been in each of the Boarhead.
Boarhead.
Let's
call it Boarhead.
The Moorhead and Benson projects, right? Yeah.
I was not in Resolution, but I am in a DVD extra for Resolution where I play Shane, the 3rd character. Where it's as if there were actually 3 people in the cabin the whole movie, and I was edited out.
I apologize. I thought you were in that.
No, it's fine because I didn't live in LA at the time.
You weren't out here yet.
I moved like right after they finished filming.
Gotcha. Wow.
I'm sure
it's incredible how I'm putting you back so much further.
Yeah.
Like I'm remembering you at parties that you were not here at, or remembering you at events or shoots that you were not there for, which is weird the way your brain fills in that gap.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is like, and this, I hope this isn't a pretentious statement. It's just what they pay you if you do commercials out
Sure.
here. You know, it feels the same to film something where you're like, I made $10,000 today. I know it's
Right.
going to be over the course of the year because
Right,
of
sure.
residual payments, but
Sure,
I
sure,
know
sure.
that like
this work I did
Yeah,
today will earn me.
will be worth
Right.
$10,000 by the end of the year.
Sure.
And grabbing a camera with your buddies and going out, like the work is the work is the work.
Right.
It is the same.
Yeah.
So going out to shoot The Endless kind of felt no different than spring, except for sometimes when you film things, you get those little butterflies of
Yeah,
like,
this is good.
this is good.
Yeah.
We're doing something special here. This isn't all thrown together. It's not
Right.
this riffraff thing. Like we've all done our rehearsal. We're all here for this like punk rock version of a movie where it's
Right.
not about the glitz and the glam. It's literally about like, we literally filmed it in this like culty set of cabins
Right.
in the middle of nowhere, San Diego. And most of it was night shoots, and it would go down to like 25 to 35 degrees at night,
Right.
and it would be 90 degrees during the day. And all of us were sick
Yeah.
because
right,
your
right.
body isn't supposed to do that. And all of us are sleeping in cabins next to each
Yeah,
other. Like
you're straight up in trenches.
you're in the trenches. Like everyone, cast and crew, we all know we're sleeping on these cots, you know, making this project together. And we all wore multiple hats.
Right.
Like
yeah. That's one of the
even-
reasons why I like, again, the family thing, working with friends is like, I don't feel bad, putting you in pinch and being like, hey, Shane, would you mind holding this for me? And,
Yeah.
and having you, or hey, would you mind, we need another hand here.
Yeah.
Would you mind Hollywooding this over here? Holding
Yeah.
this light? Or,
Yep. I will say we were very lucky to have, there's a casting director named Mark Bennett,
Mhm.
and he cast The Endless. And I think he knew what we were trying to accomplish. He became famous for casting the Hurt Locker
Mhm.
for Catherine Bigelow. And he told me, this might be like insider information, but he told me that when he was offered to cast the movie, he said, I cast it for free out of Catherine Bigelow's living room. And we would just have people come in. And he's like, I picked Jeremy Renner and I fought for Jeremy Renner. And people said, okay, well, we'll give the movie to Jeremy Renner because Jeremy Renner was creeping into his 40s and had been
Right.
fucking hustling
Right.
forever.
Yeah.
And he's like, he deserves it. He's not only the best for the role, but don't do the thing where you cast like, and I'm making this up, but like, don't cast Brad Pitt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
metaphorical Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
when this guy fucking deserves it.
Yeah.
And so when Aaron and Justin went to Mark and, they said, will you cast The Endless? We knew that he was going to cast the punk rock
Right.
people
Right.
who knew what it takes to like get dirty. And so like, I mean, I very happily will, like, Callie Hernandez was awesome.
Mhm.
James Jordan steals the movie.
Yeah.
I will unabashedly say that James Jordan, who plays Shitty Carl, steals the movie. Lou Temple, who says 4 words during the whole movie, is the most captivating fucking person in the
Wow.
movie because he's such a pro. And I think Aaron and Justin had a 9-hour conversation with Lou when they were prepping for the movie
Yeah.
about his backstory and his character.
For those
so,
4 lines.
So these 4
Yeah,
lines
yeah.
were filled with so much life.
Right. Right.
Tate Ellington, there are no further superfluous adjectives I can possibly throw to laud Tate Ellington
Right.
in how amazing of a person he is as an actor, as a father, as a family man. His beautiful wife Chrissy and their little daughter were like with us filming.
That's
and
awesome.
and he had just done a show on NBC where you're making a bunch of money, and now he's getting paid $125 a day, and he's still like, oh, we went to like this little apple pie place,
Right,
so I
right,
bought
right.
20 apple pies for everybody just for fun. Meanwhile, we're like, thank you, and now sit in the 20-degree weather next to the
Right,
campfire
right.
and deliver a good monologue, and
Right.
he's just like a fucking champ. So like everybody involved in that
Yeah.
movie, like,
Well, I mean, we can't tell the people enough.
Yeah.
Go see The Endless. If you have Movie Pass and
Yes.
you have a theater that is playing it in your area and you're not going to go to a movie that day, just buy the
Yeah.
ticket on Movie Pass.
yes,
Go check in.
Yep.
And it'll really help the movie itself get into more theaters.
Yeah, because the numbers matter.
And a similar thing happened years ago. I guess it was only a year ago, maybe, with Mike Birbiglia's second movie, Don't Think Twice, where, listen, if you go to these screenings, if you make a point to show up to the few screenings, it will only help it spread nationwide. The
Yeah.
better it does in the small theaters, the more the big theaters are going to take it, and,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So please please, please, please go see The Endless. You will not regret it. I mean, the movie is phenomenal. We're not asking you to go see a dud here. Trust me. Shane, once again, this has been one of my favorite episodes of the show.
Jake, thank you, brother.
It was so great getting to talk to you more about family. I know you and I could go on for days about how we feel emotionally in regards to the people surrounding us. You are so insanely talented. I absolutely am thrilled to have you as a friend and a creative partner. You are a goddamn delight. Please tell the people how to find you on the internet and where to go for all things Shane Brady.
Sure. So I have my shitty website that I built called ShaneBradyActor.com. Instagram, Shane Brady Actor, right? Because you had to throw actor in there, otherwise people don't know. But yeah, man, just Instagram, website, go to theendless-movie.com. But also, while you're doing all that, don't forget the guy who runs his podcast, Badass Number One, Jake Lloyd. Go check out all his shit. And if you're listening to this, like again, talking about like family and creating stuff, like let's all keep creating stuff.
Yes.
Hire him to do because because Jake, there are not a lot of people out here. Truth be told, there's not a lot of people who are like, hey, I can shoot it, I can help direct, I can help write. He's not just a good writer, he's a great punch-up guy. Like we've done all these Camp Hollywood movies together, and there would be so many times where like we're in the middle of shooting and Jake would just be like, wait, shouldn't she say it this way? Because doesn't that motivate the line clearer? And isn't that? And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's 1,000% right. And I didn't even think of that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But like, and then he edits it better than anyone else, more efficiently than anyone else.
I appreciate that.
Like,
well, listen, I'm gonna go out on that high note. Please follow me on Twitter at LiquidJake, and be sure to follow the podcast at Elaborate Pod on all social media, as well as our network, Dragon Wagon Radio. If you're listening to this and you enjoy the show, I really urge you to consider donating. Dragon Wagon Radio is a completely independent podcast network. It does cost a lot of money to keep all of these shows running, as well as the time spent, not just in actually recording, but in the post-production elements as well, and putting out the best possible product to you. If you enjoyed this show on the network, I urge you to check out other shows on the network. And if you do have it in your heart to donate, you can donate directly via PayPal. You can set up a recurring monthly payment, sort of similar to a Patreon thing, but we've just selected PayPal instead at this current time. Or you can donate something directly off of an Amazon wish list that we've set up for you. That way you know exactly where your money's going, what you're getting. There's stuff on that list, big and small, stuff from new microphones and headphones and cables and technology that we need, all the way down to coffee and toilet paper to keep our guests well-fueled and well-wiped. You can see all of the information on that at dragonwagonradio.com/donate. Let's see what else. Rating and reviews. Please, if you guys have enjoyed this conversation, if you enjoy any of these conversations, I really urge you to right now. It takes 2 seconds. You're probably listening to this and your phone is in your hand anyway, because you know that the show is wrapping up. So you picked your phone up now to pick what podcast you're going to listen to next. So I know you're holding it, you sons of bitches. I know it. Just scroll over to the rating review section. Click us 5 stars. Write a review. It doesn't have to be long. Just tell the people what you think and give us a review. That is the absolute best way for this show to find organic listeners. iTunes pretty much organizes everything by how many ratings and reviews you have. So the more and more ratings and reviews you throw out there, the better it will be for us. And with that said, also share it with your friends and family. If you think people will get something out of these conversations, please share it. I think that about does it for business. As always, please, I beg you, be an artist, not an influencer. Create art, not content. Thank you so much for listening. Shane, thank you so much for coming by. I love you, bud.
Love you too, buddy.
You guys, they're just so handsome. Mark Allen Heiliger and Chad Phillip Peter, hosts of The Hell With This.
You know, if you keep up with those kind of compliments, it's going to start to sound facetious.
Tell me a little bit about The Hell With This.
It's about that movie that you love, that your best friend has never seen, despite you telling him to watch it about 1,000,000 times. Chad and I have a lot of those between us.
Yeah, so we're basically saying, you know what, the hell with this. It's time to finally sit on the couch and watch those movies.
Sometimes it's a movie I love that Chad hasn't seen. Sometimes it's the other way around.
And sometimes even a guest will bring a movie along.
So you guys are diving into movies. It's a fantastic way for people to explore and discover movies that they might not even know about. How do people check it out?
You can listen to us at thehellwiththis.com or wherever podcasts are found.
It's Dragon Wagon.